Okay. So thanks, Melissa, for being here to present to us today, this board's webinar. So Melissa Dealey is an integrative mind-body health practitioner, master trainer of hypnotherapy, trainer of NLP and timeline therapy, helping clients detox and heal their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. Her virtual business serves clients across the English-speaking world. Melissa is also an international speaker, a five-time best-selling author, and the host of the award-winning Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast, which is ranked in the top 2% globally. When not serving clients, Melissa is dedicated to her not-for-profit Girls Matter, helping keep girls in school in Uganda and Kenya, breaking the cycle of poverty, one girl at a time, one family, one village at a time. So thanks again, Melissa, for being here to present to us today on the master key to your health and life. So I'm going to hand over to Melissa to tell us more about her topic and yeah, just be engaged today and, raise your hand if you want to ask some questions. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Tara. And thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you learn a thing or two as we go through today. And yes, please do ask questions at the end. I will definitely leave time for that. And before we get started, though, I know the unconscious mind loves stories. And so I want to share a few stories with you and start with a question. Have you ever been exhausted? Just flat out exhausted? Anyone? Even if you haven't, just imagine this. I had a client whose energy levels were just so depleted that she was dragging her butt through the day, could not keep up with her three young boys, didn't even feel like she had the energy to put a smile on her face. She really just wanted to lie in bed all day. And yet when she did, she couldn't sleep. She just said life felt like, ugh. And she had been to doctor after doctor and told, nothing is wrong with you. It's all in your head. And then was offered drugs. Now, she had the wherewithal to realize that if they didn't know what was wrong with her and that it was all in her head, what was in these drugs that were being offered anyway? And so she said no, knowing that that was just a stab in the dark by the doctors, and she continued her search for answers. Unfortunately, this is the story of far too many people in the world today. And do you think they want to live like this? No, absolutely not. And yet, the answers can be so elusive. And they keep looking. And when this client found me, well, that reminds me of another story. Have you ever been so curious, just so curious that you wanted to keep studying 24/7? Didn't want to put down your books for breaks because the more you learned, the more curious you became. And the more curious you got, the more you learned. And you found yourself in this wonderful loop of learning. Well, that was me when I first got into health coaching and stepped into this world of holistic health. Until that time, I had no idea what I didn't know, and nor did I have any understanding of the programming we are under from the medical industry. And now suddenly, it was all making so much sense. It was like I had been given the master key to the magic kingdom that held all the answers. And that reminds me of another story. Holistic health was not on my radar. In fact, I have a commerce degree. I didn't ever plan to get into this line of work. I was led into it by the universe once I got let go from my corporate career after 24 years of service. And I simply asked the universe, what is next for me? and I was led into holistic health. And once I started my training, I realized how much I didn't know about my own body and how it worked and how it healed itself. And I got really excited because I realized that what I was learning could help me and my family, and truly, the whole world needed to learn this stuff. And the more I learned, the more excited I became about sharing this with others. And that led me to becoming an integrative health practitioner and running functional medicine lab tests. And that led me to finding NLP, which led to timeline therapy and hypnotherapy. And I thought I would just be a practitioner of these modalities. That sounded fabulous. And when I was taking my prac course and they told me about, well, enough stories. Let's get to why all of you are here today. Who would like to feel fabulous in your body, mind, and soul? Amazing, right? Who would like to tune into the power you already hold within? Love it. Love those thumbs up too. And who would like to witness all the tools you already have, resulting in you holding the master key to your health and life? Amazing. And that's right. You hold the master key to your health and life. Most people have no idea of this, and yet you do. And as a result, you are in a position to help hundreds and thousands of people regain their health. And this content needs to be shared far and wide with the world so more people wake up and see that there is another way. We do not have to be so dependent on a pill for every ill and living in a state of the hypnosis of the diagnosis. And another question for all of you, so I can just gauge my audience here today. How many of you, I realize you're all here with the American Board of Hypnotherapy, you're all trained in hypnotherapy. How many of you are also trained in NLP? Okay, and what about timeline therapy? Many of you, not all, looks like. Awesome, thank you. So I am just going to share slides with you here, and Tara and I are both going to cross our fingers and hope that technology works for us here. Okay. Can you see my slides? Excellent, thank you. Tara already did a wonderful introduction of me, so thank you very much. What I would like to do today is share with you where we are at in the world today, how we came to be here, and how the tools that many of you have can make such a profound difference in the lives of everybody you touch in terms of their health, even if you are doing a business breakthrough or a relationship breakthrough. You are still helping them with their health. So first of all, let's talk about where we're at. This chart here on the left-hand side is showing people with one or more chronic health condition in the US from 2013 until 2023, so very current. The red line represents people in middle age from 45 to 65. The blue line represents people older than that. And you can see this tragic increase in the last 10 years with people in the age of 45 to 65, we're at roughly 40% of people had one or more chronic health condition in 2013, and 10 years later, that's up to 51.4%. And with seniors, it's higher, starting at 60%, and 10 years later, it's up to 76.4%. And yet, we have all of this wonderful first world medicine available to us. And I'm not talking down against allopathic care. Acute care is fabulous. If I was in some kind of an accident and needed surgery or blood transfusion, etc., there's no place I would rather be. Where we are failing people is right here with chronic health and doctors telling people, this is your diagnosis, you have this for life, and here, take this drug. In Canada, where I am, it's not much better. This chart shows the entire population having gone from 41% to 46% in the last 8 years. And then if we look at overall for the US, since 1960, chronic illness was at roughly 30% of the population. And now in 2020, it's at 50% of the population. With all this research, with all this money being put behind chronic illness, why are these numbers getting so much worse? Well, let's talk about it. We live in a toxic world. Unfortunately, since World War II, we've had more than 100,000 man-made chemicals introduced into our world. And that is far too much for our human body to deal with. We do have detox systems in our body, our liver and our kidneys. However, they are overwhelmed because they were never designed to deal with this level of toxicity, getting into our body through our airways, our waterways, through our skin. Our body cannot adapt that quickly. We also have low nutrient uptake, not to be confused with low caloric uptake. People are eating enough calories, in many cases, far too many calories. However, those calories are nutrient deplete. The big reason behind that is the agricultural revolution. Again, with the good intention of feeding the world, we started mass farming, and we weren't allowing the soil's time to settle and regenerate the nutrients. And so we are farming in soil that is nutrient deplete, which means the nutrients can't grow into the food, and the food that we're buying at the supermarket is nutrient deplete and loaded with sugar and chemicals to extend the shelf life. And as a result today, people are only getting 7 to 9 of the needed nutrients to thrive. That's less than 10, 7 to 9, 7, 8, 9. We need 79 nutrients on a daily basis in order to thrive. Another example is if we go back to the 1940s and my grandmother, and if she were to eat one orange, in order for me to get the same level of nutrients from an orange today, I would need to eat 9. And nobody eats 9 oranges in one sitting. So it's very difficult for our bodies to thrive and be in balance and be able to heal and have the energy that we need when we are so nutrient deplete. We also have that lovely thing called stress. The world is stressed out. We live in a go, 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 do, do, do society, running around our careers, getting kids from A to B to C, etc., etc. And people are stressed out. And that stress is negatively impacting our health because under stress, we are breaking down the good balance in our gut microbiome and creating an imbalance, which negatively impacts our immune system because 70% of our immune system is housed in our gut. And that high level of stress is negatively impacting our sleep because we're so stressed out, our mind's always churning, we can't get to sleep at night. And poor sleep also breaks down the important balance in our gut microbial environment, again, negatively impacting our immune system. We also have our medical system masking symptoms with drugs. The symptoms are our body's way of talking to us. We go to the doctor, and the way they've been trained is to make the symptoms go away, as opposed to let's look at the root, let's figure out what's going on and get to that root cause and heal you. No, let's just make the symptoms go away so you feel better. We mask the symptoms with the drugs, and then the body, as clever as it is, goes, that's not what I wanted you to do, and gives you another symptom. So you go back to the doctor, and the doctor gives you another drug. And this is how many people end up with multiple diagnoses of chronic illnesses on multiple drugs, none of which are making them better. It is holding them in a pattern of chronic illness. They're also ignoring the emotional body. And it's not the doctor's fault. They haven't been taught this. I haven't been taught how to do surgery. They haven't been taught about the emotional body and the fact that we have one. In fact, through my entire training, even as an integrative health practitioner, which is, holistic health, we weren't taught about the emotional body. And we also have the belief that talk therapy is the solution for our mental health problems. And yes, we have a mental body. However, you all know talk therapy isn't the solution because you all understand that the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between imagined and real. And every time you have to talk about the trauma, your unconscious mind is reliving it. Your nervous system is firing and reliving it. And that is not releasing it from the body. That is actually deepening the neurology. It is not helping the healing. And you probably know people who have been to see therapists. And therapists are great for bringing the problem to awareness. However, at that point, people need to ask, and what is the right tool for the job to release this now that I understand it? Versus talking about it over and over again and walking away from that session feeling worse than when they went in. Or going to multiple sessions and after a while going, this isn't making a difference. I have many, many people that have told me they've had that experience. And so we are stuck with a medical system that is designed to keep us sick. Its goal is profit, not health. Big Pharma's focus is shareholder returns, and they grow shareholder returns by introducing more drugs and having more people take those drugs each and every single day. And in order to have more people take those drugs each and every single day, their motivation is not to have someone actually heal. They want to keep people sick in that holding pattern. And that is the unfortunate situation of where we were at. And the wonderful thing is, you all can offer something different. Now let's talk about stress, because stress is not just an emotional experience. It is a physiological disruptor with massive consequences. In fact, it is responsible for over 90% of doctors' visits. And most doctors are on a time crunch limit. They've got 7 minutes or 15 minutes to deal with a patient, depending where you live. And I've had doctors tell me, I can't deal with stress with my client. I know that's their problem. However, that's a 45-minute conversation to talk to them about the lifestyle factors they need to implement in order to lower their stress. I don't have that kind of time. And I need to give them a prescription as they leave because they want something for a solution. So I either give them anti-anxiety or an antidepressant and send them away. As I've already said, high stress weakens the immune system. It also increases the risk of chronic disease by 40 to 60%. Makes sense if your immune system isn't working properly, right? It doubles the risk of heart attack and stroke, and it contributes to multi-comorbidity, in other words, more than one chronic illness diagnosis. And it is costing North America $300 billion annually. It is one of the most underestimated public health crises in modern society. And people aren't really talking about it. And that's why I want to, and to give you this information, because you can then share it with your clients. So in the US, this is very current data, 2023 to early 2025. In the US, it's costing direct medical costs of stress, $277 billion a year. And then an additional 1.1 trillion in lost productivity for a total of about 1.3 trillion. In Canada, the direct medical costs are 68 billion, which is interesting because that number is about 25% of the number in the US, and yet our population is less than 12% of the US population. And so I have to wonder, is that because we have government provided medical care? And the US doesn't. They have to pay for every doctor's visit. And so perhaps not every person in the US is even going to the doctor because they can't afford it and their number is underestimated. We also have another 122 billion in lost productivity in Canada. These are big numbers. And what if we could shift it so that people don't have to be harbored by this stress, burdened by it? And we can. And these numbers, though, don't even factor in other indirect costs like unpaid caregiving, early retirement, tax revenue loss, higher recent treatment costs. In other words, this data is already a year old. How much have these costs gone up in the last year with inflation? What about the disability and long-term care costs, as well as the fact that there are many, many chronic conditions, and only the well-known ones are the ones that are studied. And there's a whole bunch more that aren't even factored in to this research. So these numbers are all understated. And then we have the average costs of nursing homes in the US. The average American spends 10 years of their life in a nursing home. That is not living. That is not quality of life. Nobody retires and says, oh, I can't wait to go live in the nursing home. People are retiring and planning their travels and spending time with grandchildren, etc. However, with this rise in chronic illness, it's reducing their mobility and their ability to live their dreams, and instead they end up in a nursing home. And look at these costs. In 2016, a private room was $92,000 US dollars. And by 2030, which is now only 4 years away, it's up to $143,000. Times 10, 1.43 million. Who is putting away 1.43 million so that they can spend the last 10 years in a nursing home? And that is room and board. That doesn't even include their medical expenses because each person's medical expenses are individual to them. So it's a choice. Invest in your health now, or you're going to pay later. And that is a conversation that I have with my clients over and over again. Because a single event, health event, often predicts future health challenges. So once you've had one event, it can lead to more. Heart disease, cancer, COVID, or the multimorbidity, multiple chronic illnesses. Because in our healthcare model, we are only looking at the physical body. We are not bringing people back to total or whole health, as I like to call it. So many of you, I'm sure, are aware of the fact that we have 3 minds and 4 bodies. Again, this was never discussed in my integrative health practitioner training, and I'm willing to bet it is not discussed in medical school. And I love this slide and this information because it changes everything for us. We have 4 bodies: the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. And by the time the symptoms show up in the physical body, they've already moved through the other 3 bodies. And so we start the healing process in the physical body, and then we need to clear it in the emotional body and in the mental body. And that helps us come into alignment in the spiritual body, because by the time we've cleared the emotional and mental body, we now have the clarity of who we are, our mission, and how we want to show up in the world, and brings us into that spiritual alignment. This is so powerful because this is the answer as to how we get people to be able to heal and overcome their chronic illness. We also have our 3 minds: our higher self, our conscious mind, and our unconscious mind. Our higher self is the home of our spiritual body. Our conscious mind is the home of our mental body, and the one that most of the world is the most familiar with. And our unconscious mind, the home of our emotional body and our imagination. And you'll see from this chart, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind can communicate with each other. And the higher self and the unconscious mind also communicate with each other. And the missing link here is that the conscious mind cannot connect and communicate with the higher self. And yet it is the higher self that holds our blueprint for perfect health, as well as all of the resources we need in this lifetime to fulfill our mission. Therefore, the goal is determined in the conscious mind. We call it the goal setter. The unconscious mind is the goal getter because it can communicate with the higher self and bring down the resources that we need. And because the higher self holds our blueprint for perfect health, the unconscious mind has access to that in order to help our healing process. So the emotional body, let's talk about that. Again, in society, we are taught to stuff down our emotions. Have any of you ever heard boys don't cry, or perhaps put your big girl panties on, or perhaps leave your troubles at home, don't want to hear them? And we are programmed as young children to stuff down our emotion. And over the course of our lifetime, that stuffed down emotion causes dis-ease. And we have powerful tools, namely timeline therapy, that will actually allow us to release all that stuffed down negative emotion from the body without having to talk about it over and over again. That is how we clear the dis-ease from the emotional body. And we use timeline therapy to clear the mental body as well. All of our limiting decisions that are formed in our tender years, the 4 core uns of unworthy, unlovable, not good enough, powerless, and everything that stems from that. Not smart enough, not pretty enough, not tall enough, not skinny enough, whatever they are. All of those limiting decisions that are holding us back, that are getting in the way of our progress forward from our healing journey. The limiting decision of, I can't heal, cancel, cancel, cancel. Doctor told me I was going to have this for life. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Timeline therapy will release all of that. And once all of that has been released, now we're in a place to go, this job I've been in for the last 20 years that is sucking my soul, that I hate going to every day, sucks. And now I have the courage to leave it, because now I know I have the ability to step into my power, into my mission. And when I do that, life is in flow. And that's the spiritual alignment. And that's the journey we need to take people on in their healing. I'm sure many of you know people, and you can raise your hand if you do, someone who's gone through a health crisis and they recover from it, and then a year or 2 years later, there's another one. Anybody know people who've gone through that? Yeah. Because the first time, all they did was heal the physical body. And the medical system says, yay, you're healed. And they stopped there because that's all they know. And then, a year or so later, the other bodies are going, hello, pay attention to me. I'm sending you more symptoms. Pay attention to me. This is the path to true healing. And this is the path that you all can help people with. So we talked about stress and how it's responsible for 90% of doctor's visits. Our tools that we have as NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy trained people, practitioners, can help calm the client's nervous system. And that's where we need to start. And we have many simple tools that you can use in order to do that in every single breakthrough that you take a client on. Starting with learning state, teaching people how to get into learning state. Remember, when we get into learning state, we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, getting them into their rest and digest state and out of fight or flight and out of their sympathetic nervous system. That's huge for people. So a lot of people don't know how to do that. And when we ask them, when we teach them how to get into learning state and we say, what's different? Many people will say, it feels calm. And it's biologically impossible to have a negative emotion in that state. And you've got your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere working all together. It's a beautiful state. And people can live in that state every single day. It takes you 5 minutes to teach it. And just that can have a profound impact for them. Then we have anchoring, collapsing anchors to help people let go of their minor negative emotions, frustration and irritation, and not having to be in this state of stress, feeling that all the time. Let it go. Building them a resource anchor in order to allow them to tap the anchor and choose calm, choose peace, choose joy, choose to calm the nervous system. And then we have the stop sign technique and gratitude journaling, which my soul sister who's here listening and driving Billy at me and we teach this to every single client. The stop sign technique is literally this. Become aware of your thoughts. Do you talk to yourself as someone you love? Another way to put that is, if you talked to other people the way you talk to yourself, would you have any friends? We are so hard on ourselves. And all of that negativity is, again, causing stress. And what if we start to create awareness around it? Focus on our thoughts, and when we have negative thoughts, just put up the stop sign. Let it pass on by. Swap it into a positive thought. And take that a step further and start gratitude journaling. At the end of every day, as you're going to bed, the last thing you do before you turn out the light, because you all know that your unconscious mind works on whatever you feed it right before you go to bed. So let's feed it some gratitude so it can go to sleep happy and you can get into a deeper, more restorative sleep. Because watching the 11 p.m. news is not a good idea right before you go to bed. That causes a stressful sleep. And as you do this every night, you're retraining your reticular activation system, the sentinel in your mind, to look for the gratitude in each and every day, as opposed to the fear, the danger. That's what it's been programmed to look for. And back in our hunter-gatherer day, that was important. It's not needed anymore. I've never seen a lion or a tiger in my grocery store. Have any of you? No, we don't have the same level of danger. And we can reprogram our mind to look for the gratitude. And notice how we show up differently. And when you teach this to your clients and you encourage them to do it for 30 days and just notice the difference. These are simple tools and yet so powerful. We have NLP reframing techniques. When you work with a client, you're naturally reframing their view of things anyway, opening up their model of the world, taking the blinders off. Take people through perceptual positions and enjoy the wisdom from the eagle of wisdom. Having them see an entire situation, relationships that have been troubled for years, can be resolved simply by taking someone through this. And that releases the stress from their life. And parts, bringing the parts together. Instead of having this internal battle going on, bringing them together into wholeness. reduces the stress on their entire nervous system. And we have timeline therapy. Use it to release all of that stuff down, negative emotion I was talking about, which literally causes dis-ease and has an underlying current of stress running through their body, causing energetic blockages. Use timeline therapy to release the LDs, which is causing more unnecessary stress. And all of those LDs are BS anyway, because we know every single person is magnificent. They just can't see it for themselves yet. And then we just stop wasting energy by bringing those parts together. And all of that internal conflict is causing more stress, stress that they are unaware of. And yet when it's gone, they notice how much better they feel. As master practitioners, we can align values to stop the stress of living out of alignment unknowingly, as well as update their strategies to stop the stress of unwanted behaviors that are no longer serving, and yet we don't understand why we keep doing them. And then we have all of our meta health protocols that after completing a full breakthrough, you can use these to guide all 4 bodies back to full health. So our tools are allowing us to help people at the very core of themselves come back into full health and eradicating all of that unnecessary stress. Instead of just looking at the stress that they are aware of, we are looking at the stress that they are completely unaware of. And yet it is an undercurrent in everything that they do. I said earlier, 90% of all doctor's visits are due to stress. 65% of all illness or dis-ease is due to stress. It is systemic, and it is playing havoc on our health and our medical system. And you have all of these tools to guide people in calming their nervous system. And as I said at the very beginning, it doesn't have to be a health breakthrough. You use all of these tools when you do a business breakthrough, when you do a relationship breakthrough. Any kind of breakthrough has this side benefit of calming your client's nervous system and therefore benefiting their health, which of course is good news for your clients because their health issues can be corrected. And in many cases, even before they become aware of them. If they're choosing a business breakthrough and they don't have any health issues right now, guess what? Doing that business breakthrough is also eliminating risk of future health breakthroughs because you just cleared out their emotional body, their mental body, and reduce the risk of the disease forming. Ultimately, it comes down to your client's choice, though. Do they want to remain on victim island, doing life the hard way, or are they ready to consistently use these tools that you provide them in order to move to Solution City, where life is aligned, they are empowered, and life is just easier to navigate from this place. And it's way more fun. Beachfront condos, the restaurants are better. Everybody wants to live over on Solution City, right? I mean, just the names, right? Who here wants to live on Victim Island? Yeah, didn't think so. And your clients don't either. They just don't realize they have a choice. So when you are working with someone and the next time you are doing a discovery call, ask your clients these questions. What is their health truly worth to them? What is their life worth? Would they rather choose Solution City? Would they like to pay $1.4 million for 10 years in a nursing home? Or pay now for your breakthrough, which I know isn't even $1 million, although it's worth that. Or attend your training or a webinar to come and learn the power of this work. This is the gift that you are offering. This is the master key to your health and life when you use the tools for self, and to their health and life when you teach all of this to your clients and share these tools. with them. So remember when I was so excited about my prac course and all that I was learning? And when they told me that if I went on to become a master practitioner, I'd get to learn the meta health model and receive all the protocols, I was sold out. I signed up on the spot. And as I started master practitioner, I realized this wasn't the end. It was another beginning. And I got even more excited about the prospect of where I could take all of this learning. And that has led me to being right here where I am today, completing my journey this year as a master trainer of NLP so that I can train trainers. Because this work isn't meant to be kept to ourselves. It is our responsibility to share it far and wide. And that is what I intend to do. And I hope you do as well. And remember over here when I was so curious and I felt like I'd been given the master key to learning about how the body heals itself? I realized that I had it all wrong before. We had all been programmed to believe that you wait to get sick and then you go to the doctor and he fixes you. And with all my new learning, I was so excited to find that that was not the road to optimal health. The path is through prevention. And it is in understanding that we are not broken and that our symptoms are messengers and that we can bring the body back into balance so that it can heal itself. And that we must address all four bodies, not just our physical body, in our healing journey. That is the master key to our health and life. And that excites me. It gives me so much hope. And remember when I was talking about my exhausted client over here who was told nothing was wrong with her by doctor after doctor? What she didn't understand was she was making choices each and every day that was leaving her exhausted, and she didn't consciously know it. And once she connected with me, she was so excited because I was able to share tools with her that shifted her energy levels, calmed her nervous system, released energy blockages. And in her body, she immediately felt lighter. And then it became a choice for her to continue to use the tools or not. And the great news is the moment she made the choice to use those tools, it led her to Solution City. And she was so excited because her mind and body felt in alignment. She was able to keep up with her three young boys. She was getting downloads saying, yes, go that way. Follow that breadcrumb. You are now on the right path. All she needed was for someone to plant a seed for her that allowed her to make a different choice. And just like me, you can be the one to do that for others. So I want to say thank you very much to all of you for being here, for listening today and learning. And I'm going to open it up to questions. And I also want to let you know, for those that are not timeline therapy trained, that Billy, Admi, and I have just taught our first standalone timeline therapy training in early February, and we're running it again in June 1st to 3rd. It is called Karma Code. And if anybody would like to learn this powerful modality for helping heal the emotional body and the mental body, I will drop the link in the chat for you to learn more. And thank you very much, Tara, for allowing me to do that. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute. I would be happy to answer them for you.
I think it's mind blowing to think the price for mental stability, or the stress, is so phenomenally big. And to be aware of that, to put the things to practice, must be amazing to see how you can change, or I suppose, the world in helping people de-stress. And I think that's a wonderful gift. So I'm basically making a statement more than a question. Sorry. So it was wonderful
That's
to
okay.
hear that.
That's okay. And thank you, Ross. And yes, absolutely. And with the tools that we all have here, we can absolutely help people calm their nervous system. And that's where we need to start. It it doesn't have to be rocket science. Like so much of the work that we do, it really is that simple. And people just don't realize it because of the programming that we've been given. That, we are powerless when it comes to our health, and we have to go and see a doctor and have the doctor fix us. And there are all the tools that we have are so powerful in teaching people there is another way.
It is. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Ross. Any other statements, questions, feedback, thoughts? Thank you for the notes in the chat as well. I appreciate them.
Yeah,
Anthony, yeah, go ahead.
thanks, Melissa, for your time and effort in putting this. It was great, really good. It's great. What are your thoughts on how you'd relate this to Jung's ideas of the collective conscious?
So, if the collective conscious is, I haven't spent a lot of time researching that per se, other than I do believe that we are all one. And I do believe that if enough of us get this message out to the world, that we hit that tipping point where it does become part of the collective consciousness. We're just not there yet. We have such a small percentage of the global population that understands that we don't have to have a pill for every ill and be stuck in the diagnosis of the hypnosis. And so that's why I say it takes all of us to share this far and wide for enough people to come to learn and recognize this, that it gets up into the morphogenic field and into the collective consciousness where it's just known.
Yeah, why I asked that question is because there's the very recent work in the scientific area of the mind. They are now claiming, or there is evidence that the individuals who have the sort of telepathic experience, that they're all connected, but how they don't know as yet, because there's so much evidence that there is this transference, if you like, of thoughts.
Yes.
How
Yes.
it's done, no one knows, but that's what's being, just like Einstein's work on teleporting.
Right. And so again, we don't know how it's happening. However, there has to be enough humans on the planet with that understanding in order for it to expand out into the collective consciousness. That's my belief and understanding anyway.
Sure.
And we're not there yet. And it doesn't mean that, of the 7 or 8 billion people on the planet, we need to get to 60%. It doesn't need to be that big of a number. However, it needs to be much bigger than what it is today for people to, for enough people to know and for that to be expanded across humanity. What I also find,
yeah.
go ahead.
And it's the receptive, like a radio signal and a receiver.
Yes.
So if in your work, if you're really trying to, am I correct in saying this, create a good receiver?
Yes, good receiver and good receptor. And I do know from other work that I've done and trained in magnified healing, just the way we have the Trinity in our mind and the receivers in our current form of human being is knocked over. It's like tilted. And Bruce Lipton talks about this as well, that it's no longer upright. And so we don't have the same connectivity to the higher realms that our forebears did. And if you look at the Mayans or even the Egyptians, we don't know how they built the pyramids, for instance. Like the science we understand today doesn't explain it for the era that they were built in and how did they move the stones, et cetera, et cetera. And yet in that era, they had that connectivity up and they could get the downloads and the communication from above in how to do it. So it's absolutely fascinating. And the power that we have in our own mind is, we only are still touching on the smallest understanding of it.
So maybe that's the collective conscious or unconscious.
Or yes, it's definitely through the unconscious that we connect collectively. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. And Janet, yes,
Melissa, I'll jump
how do
in.
you know?
I'll jump in on that. I'll jump in on that comment
Please.
because we were just teaching
Yes,
this weekend that, when
exactly.
it's all about frequency, that when we can raise our energy, we affect others around us. So when we heal ourselves, we're healing our generational, we're healing, for the future, and we're healing the people around us just by us healing and raising our frequency. So I think that's kind of part to kind of what Anthony's talking about. And I just want to say, Melissa, amazing job. Love you, sister. I got
Oh,
to take my
thank
daughter
you.
in, so I'm
Yes.
going to sign
I
off.
hope she enjoys Girl
Great
Guides.
work.
Thank
Thank you.
you. And I was just going to say there to Janet, how do you know what you don't know? Exactly. And so that's why we always need to keep learning and growing, because we don't know what we don't know. And that is part of the journey, is to never stop learning.
But the best part of it is that we know that we don't know something, and that's why we search for it. So is that the higher self?
Yes. We know that we don't know it all. If we can come from that place of we know that we don't know it all and there's always more to learn, absolutely.
Okay, I'm actually going to jump in now if that's okay. I'm from
Yeah.
Adelaide in South Australia. And Melissa, I appreciate you. I just want to share a very quick story. The doctors here in Adelaide, the short version of the story is that I had dental work done, and through dental work, they found I had a brain tumor. So the doctors made me carry it for 7 years, and it was backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. I wouldn't take medicines. And I got to the point that I wanted a second opinion of my own. So I sent it to a neurosurgeon in Sydney. And I went over and I had to wait 2 hours past my appointment time. And when I got in there, I was already angst, was elevated. So I sat down with a bit of and he started asking questions and they were irritating me. And obviously he had a mission, which I didn't know at the time. And then at one point he said to me, "When did you choose to allow it to grow?" And that stopped me dead in my tracks. I was in a situation where it was a grade 4 brain tumor, and I had to have surgery. I didn't have a choice at that time that I was aware of otherwise. And I hemorrhaged in theatre. And in recovery, I was only in hospital for 23 hours and 16 minutes. He signed me out because I'd learnt to listen to the body. Yeah. And what I told him in recovery was just phenomenal. And you are what you eat. So I'm very fortunate. I'm still here. And I have a gift to give back. And that is that teachings and learnings. And it was through that and through him, he became my mentor through timeline therapy. And it was just, and that's why I'm here today. So, and everything else that you can learn and advance in is just precious.
Well, so, I love that you shared that, Janet. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so grateful that that was the doctor that you went and saw and that he asked you that question. And I would love to have you on my podcast. I just put my email address in the chat. I would love to have you on my podcast to share that story, because my podcast is called Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call. And it's all about sharing stories of people that have healed themselves and giving other people hope and inspiration that are going through it, that feel stuck, that think that there's only one way to heal. And we all know that's not true. So if you would be open to that, Janet, I would love to have you on the show to share your story. So please email me, or you can put your email in the chat and I'll follow up with you, because that's a wonderful story to have on the show.
Most certainly. No chemo, no radiation therapy whatsoever. And I've had 2 other cancers since then. It was one in the head, one in the knee, and one in the toe. Or it was 1, 2, 3, get out of me. Yeah. And that's the polite version.
Beautiful. Love that. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Any other questions or comments, or otherwise?
Good on you, Janet. Fuck cancer, huh?
Exactly. Thank you. I was going to refrain on those words.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Canberra in Australia. and I'm an old master practitioner and trainer. And I do a different version of timeline therapy. I know how to do regular timeline therapy. I'm really lucky. But I also do a different version called matrix therapy, which is kind of even more spiritual than timeline. It was created by a Sydney woman called Pip Mackay. And I work with people with ADHD because they are often looking for a solution to their very busy brains. And I crew a lot at the college that I trained at, and I just came back from some hypnosis training actually. But just watching the transformation of people, multiple en masse in the room, is just so humbling. And
Yes.
the fact that we get to do that with other clients is just amazing. But I just wanted to ask you, how will we know when we've reached the tipping point?
Yeah, we'll know when we reach the tipping point when we start to literally see the medical model that we have today start to crumble.
So when when we're recognized in as proper practitioners of what we do via the medical community, do you think that's
Well, that would be one clue. And then another would be to have more and more doctors like Sarah's doctor, right? They're the mainstream medical doctor that you go to versus, I also went through cancer 2 years ago now. I've shared my story through the conference last year. Tara has the link to that if people wanted to hear it. I also had surgery and then no chemo, no radiation, none of the above. And my doctors were attempting to force that down my throat. And because I know what I know, I was able to stand up to it and say, no, I'm doing this my way, not your way. When we have more doctors like Sarah that give people options, that ask questions, that teach them that this is in our body for a reason, and what can we learn from it, and what was the significant emotional event that triggered it that's still stuck in the body that we can release, and listening to our body. So when we start to see more of that everywhere, that's when we know we've reached that tipping point. There is a mathematical number, and I just don't remember what it is right now. I want to say 70,000, and that seems really low, so I don't want to just say that that's exactly what it is, because I may be wrong there. I'd have to go back and look in my notes. I've heard it in one of my trainings.
Yeah, I've heard it too. I don't know. I don't want to say a number either, but it's like 5% or something like that.
Well, 5% of global population would be much more than 70,000 still.
Yeah.
If each of us keep doing our work and keep sharing this with others and keep planting seeds and keep helping our clients, it's powerful. And the ripple effect of helping clients. So that metaphor that I told you about with my exhausted client that couldn't keep up with her 3 boys, she was thrilled with her results, et cetera, et cetera. And then to you dealing with ADHD, she went to pick up her 5-year-old from kindergarten one day, and the teacher said, you need to put him on drugs because he has ADHD. And she was just shocked, like, you're a teacher, you're not a doctor, who are you to diagnose this? And she didn't want to put him on drugs, right? So she reached out to me, and I talked about different options with her. And again, nutrient deficiency, right? A deficiency in omega-3s can very often look a lot like ADHD. And there's been research done that shows kids put on omega-3s versus Ritalin, when tested over the course of a year by parents and teachers, do equally as well without the negative side effects. So she did that, and we had other conversation around how, talking with her child and da 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 da. And 2 weeks later, the teacher thanked her for putting him on drugs because his behavior was night and day. And it came down to conversations and some nutrients. That's all she'd done, right?
Yeah.
So the ripple effect, because she's teaching her children, right? So it has a generational ripple effect for everybody that we work with today.
I think that's what's powerful, is it? You can undo generational trauma with it.
Exactly. That too. Absolutely. Like Billy was saying when she hopped on, we clear it in the past and we clear it forward for our own children. So
yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's awesome. It was a great talk.
Thank you. And thanks for coming on and having a chat. I appreciate it. So Tara, I'm looking at the time and want to be conscious of everyone's time. I will hand it back to you if you would like to wrap it up, if there's no one else that wants to step forward.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Isn't it insightful and amazing when you can get everybody just, give their stories to back up everything that you just said in that presentation, whether people are drawing on some other tools out there, but these modalities that you're talking about in NLP and timeline therapy are so powerful. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. If you do have further questions for Melissa, I'm pretty sure she dropped her email in there. So, I'm sure she'd be happy if you reach out to her. And thanks so much for being here. Also, Melissa's business partner, Billy, who dropped in just before, she's going to be presenting this. It's this Thursday in Australia and the US just a little bit later in time. So if you want to join that webinar, please register. We also have another one coming up next week with Ross, who was on this call as well as 2 more coming later in the month. So really busy time in March. Be sure to tune in and register for those. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Tara, and thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, both of you. Bye.
Bye, Carolyn.